Hi. So there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about today. First of all, I wanted to talk about how all our reactions that we experience every day are based on our past. What we don't realize is that that is true because we don't realize or we don't remember what they're based on. So I had a really great example just recently of a friend of mine who was having issues with one of her children. She was reacting to him in a way that she didn't like, but she didn't know why it was happening. So she did some tapping on how she was feeling right now, the feelings that she was having when she was with her son. So her son was not with her at the time, right? So she was tapping about how she felt about the experiences she had with her son. So she was tapping on the emotions that she felt. And as she tapped, a memory popped into her mind of a relationship she had had with someone as a young woman, and she had exactly the same feelings in that relationship. Now, she hadn't thought of that relationship in years and years and years. So the memories had been hidden and she didn't access them until she did this tapping. So they were connected all along. She just was not aware of them until she did this tapping work. So she might have gone, carried on in her life with this negative relationship with her son without realizing that it was based on her past. Now, once she taps through that past relationship and lets those memories and those emotions, the energy stuck inside of her from that relationship, when she lets that go, then she will probably experience a different relationship with her son. And that didn't happen until she did some of this inner work. So that's why it's so powerful, because it changes how our signal, how our body is right now, by letting go of that emotion, the stuck energy that's there. And because then we have changed, it changes our future. And without doing that inner work, we stay the same, and then we attract the same feelings into our future again. So that's why it's so important and makes such a difference to do this inner work. So that was the first thing. And it's connected to the second thing. I wanted to expand a little bit more on the question that one person posed from me from one of my YouTube videos about what to focus on when we're doing this inner work. So the first step was using EFT, right? That's this tapping technique that I have that video on. It's very powerful if you're not aware of your feelings or you're not aware of these past memories. So we can tap through anything. And what we're doing when we're tapping is we're using the words to keep our mind focused on that experience from the past or what's happening right now, which is in our body, right? So if I'm tapping on an experience from the past when I was afraid, and I use this example, I'm afraid of making this phone call. So in the past, if I was afraid of making this phone call, I could use those words, or I'll use the present. I'm afraid of making this phone call. I can keep using those words. I'm afraid of making this phone call. I'm using the words to keep my mind busily focused on that fear of making this phone call. Now, those are words, right? I'm afraid of making this phone call is a sentence, they're just words, but the fear is actually inside of us, right? It's a feeling, an emotion that's inside of us. So what we want to focus on is that feeling of the fear. So we're using the words to focus on the feeling, on the fear or the emotion. Now, to begin with, I know when I did this, I wasn't aware of those emotions. So all I could do was use the words. So that's the starting point. If you're not aware of the emotion you're feeling, you can use just the words. That will do some of the focusing for you. But as you do more and more, you become aware of the emotion. So the emotion, right, if I'm afraid of making a phone call is fear. So I can change my words slightly, right? This fear of making this phone call. I can feel this fear of making this phone call. The words are again allowing myself to focus more on that feeling of fear inside now that I'm aware of it. Now, as I do more tapping, so over time, not necessarily right now when I'm just working on this fear of making the phone call, right? To begin with, I wouldn't have been able to go deeper. So I would have just done, I'm afraid of making this phone call. 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 I'm really afraid of making this phone call because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to make the phone call because I'm embarrassed. Whatever it is, though, I just use the words. But as you keep tapping, as your awareness expands, then, you know, maybe weeks, months down the road, you'll have more depth to your awareness. So then if I'm again afraid of making a different phone call, I can still tap on that. I'm afraid of making this phone call. I can feel that fear. Well, where can I feel that fear? Now I have a more depth of awareness. Can I feel where that fear is? Maybe it's tension in my stomach, tension in my solar plexus. Then I'm using the words again to focus on that fear, which I can now feel in my stomach, my solar plexus. So I can use the words, I can feel this fear sitting in my solar plexus. I can feel this fear sitting in my solar plexus. It's really uncomfortable, this uncomfortable fear sitting in my solar plexus. It makes me feel nauseous. It's such an uncomfortable feeling, right? So now I'm using the words to focus, to hone in on that feeling that's down in my solar plexus, right? So there's more detail to the words, there's more focus to the words into me, inside of me, right? It's getting further and further inside of me. So then that's what you can tap on. Now, as you keep going, you know, weeks, months down the road, maybe you can get to a place where you can feel that fear and you can use your awareness, your focused awareness, to just focus on that sensation of fear itself. At that point, you might not need to use EFT, right? You might not need to use the tapping to focus or the tapping to do the release. You can simply feel that fear sitting in your solar plexus. And it's an uncomfortable feeling, but if you just focus on it and sit in it, now you might need to use words, and I did use words at this point to hone my focus. So I would talk to that fear sitting in my solar plexus, and I'm using the words to keep my mind focused on the feeling. So I'm trying to feel it using the words. So I would say things like, okay, I can feel you sitting there right in my solar plexus. You feel like tension, you feel uncomfortable, and I just want to feel you. I just want to allow you to be felt. I don't want to change you in any way. I just want to allow you to be felt. Because as soon as you're accepted exactly as you are, that's when the release happens. So you've got to use those words to really describe exactly what you're feeling so that you can focus on that feeling itself. So that's a pretty deep level. But if you keep going, you know, over the weeks, over the months, maybe over the years, hopefully you'll get to the place where I got to. You could actually keep that focus inside the body once the tension has released. Then at that point, I didn't need to use words at all. I could just focus on the tension, feel the tension, allow it, just allow it to be, allow it to be felt. Not want to change it in any way. It's really hard to do that. We're so encoded to try and hide it or to try and change it. We don't want it there. Now, obviously, we don't want it there. That's why we're doing this. We don't want it there, but that's not how it releases. It releases by being accepted. So once you get to the place that you can feel inside, you just focus on that tension. And it could be pain. You could be focusing on the pain and just allowing it to be felt. Not trying to change it, just allowing it. Once it's been accepted, there will be a release. And then you'll have to do it again because there will be a deeper level. Each time you release, it's a deeper level. Maybe it's another strand of fascia, another strand of connective tissue, but it will keep working as you keep working at it. So I hope that helps. That's what I wanted to share today. Hopefully some more of you than none will join me in the future, because I would love to have this be a discussion, questions and answers. I like to hear how other people have been doing these kind of things, like feedback. I know friends and other people I've been working with have had amazing realizations that hopefully we can share with others. Thanks for your time. Bye bye.